Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, and there you go, blaring the commercial right at you, right from the get-go. That's how you know we're back, baby. Hanging out with this nerd,
Nerdarchy Ted, how's everybody doing out there?
and we've been trying to do this particular stream for about 3 weeks.
So, greatly apologize for the last several weeks of not doing the Saturday live chat with you all. It's one of those fun things that we enjoy doing, and I know those of you who get out there and want to watch it live. It's a big treat as well. But sadly, we've had some computer issues.
Yeah, mine exploded.
And as we tested mine, we realized, that my computer just isn't really up to snuff for, doing this kind of stream. So yeah.
Yeah, so we've been wanting to talk about the Critical Role Kickstarter since it came out. Like, this is a fun topic. I mean, I think this could change the face of D&D and is going to have significance, meaning to the hobby itself. So we'll jump into that, and then towards the end we'll talk about our woes with the computer and stuff, because I know there's a lot of people that just come in for the different topics and they don't really care about
The other stuff.
our problems.
So, all right, let's dive in. We still have 26, or there's still 26 days on the Critical Role Kickstarter, the Legend of Vox Machina, the animated special. I know some of you out there are absolutely, diehard critters. Some of you, aren't as, interested, but I think that whether you like watching Critical Role or not, the records that this campaign is doing has got to be something to look at and acknowledge what does that mean for the hobby. So they set an initial goal of $750,000 to fund 18 months of recording, and what they were hoping that with that they were going to get two full episodes out of it, or one hour long special.
So I want to look at that. I want to talk about that a little bit first.
Sure.
Do you really believe that they didn't think they were going to get enough money to do like a series? Look, I know that people want to be humble and they don't want to just assume, oh, we're Critical Role, so blah, blah, blah. I get that, and they don't want to come off as jerks. But at the same time, right, we can look at the Matt Colville Kickstarter and be like, well, if Matt Colville can get $2 million, and he's awesome, right? Critical Role, I think they helped, spread the word of Matt Colville and get him out there, for one. But they've been doing this for a while now. They get tens of thousands of people watching them live every week. So I just can't believe that they didn't think their Kickstarter would be maybe not as big as it is now, but not big enough to sustain like the full like series, and that, which they're almost to right now anyway.
So first and foremost, they did a reaction video to how well the Kickstarter was doing within a couple hours of what had happened. With that $750,000 goal, they hit that in under an hour. So they quickly put out $1 million stretch goal, and it quickly surpassed that as well. Right now, looking at Kickstarter Live, they are at $7,866,119 with 57,881 backers, with still 26 days to go, which means this is only 19 days into their campaign, and they are blowing it out of the water. Yes, in their reaction video, they knew it was going to kick. They knew that it was going to do well. And if you're a diehard critter and you've watched, the hundreds of videos and the who knows how many thousands of hours that have gone into watching, the stream, you'll see that every time that they go to fundraise, and every time that they're going to put out a product, they sell out. They go above and beyond. And while that is great, it is telling of their market. They know that the people who are watching are willing to spend money. I myself, I've got, several sets of Critical Role dice. When I went to Gen Con, I bought both the Critical Role pins. I've got the Tal'Dorei campaign setting, here behind me, even if I never have any intention of running a game in Tal'Dorei. But it's something that I wanted on the shelf because I like the game. I like what's there. And there's some useful stuff, in that book that, as Nerdarchy always says, steal from everywhere. But they were not expecting the gung-ho push forward. We're going to get $1 million inside of 2 hours. At 3 hours is when they decided that they were going to do a live reaction video that they put up on their channel. And there's 3 of them sitting there on the couch, and they're talking about, wow. And literally for the first minute, the camera is panning to each of them, and they have this dumbfounded look on their face. And I do think it's genuine. I do think, that they were flabbergasted at how quickly, they reached their goal and how quickly people were willing to do it. Now, if you're going to make a Kickstarter and you're going to put $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $25,000 goals, that means
you don't put goals that high without a certain expectation. Let's be honest, right? Do you think there was any doubt in your mind when they started this Kickstarter that they would do less than $2 million?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I just don't think that they were thinking that it would happen that quickly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. But and what we know from Kickstarters, because we studied a few and we keep threatening to do one day. Is generally, we've heard this over and over again. A third of your pledges will come in the beginning, a third will come at the end, and the rest will come in the middle.
You have your first 48 hours, your last 48 hours, and the chunk in the middle. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing a 13-day, a 30-day, or a 45-day, whatever the different options are. Honestly, I've never made one, but I spend a lot of money on Kickstarter, more than my wife is probably happy with. But it's one of those things that, as Dave says, we have looked at it, we have studied it, and in their first several hours, they hit
4 million in the first day.
Yeah, they hit 4 million in that first day. I think they were up to 5 by the end of the second day, which means that this is looking to go. If all the normal math applies, that this is going to be a $12 to $15 million Kickstarter.
After the first day, I called it a $15 million Kickstarter. We'll see. I could be wrong. I do feel like when you have really crazy numbers like this, then it could change drastically in either direction.
Now, all of your 25,000, your 20,000, your 10,000, your 5,000, all of the big things
from 1,000 to 25,000,
they're already, they're booked, they're backed. So at this point in time is just looking at the trickle-ins, the people who are going to come in for the 1,000 and under bracket. But I can't imagine hundreds of thousands of people are watching Critical Role. And I can't imagine that, the people who are like, hey, I really dig this, I want to get in on it. Now, this Kickstarter is only funding the project. So I imagine that, because there's nothing in there that says it, if they go to DVD sales, there's no DVD in the backing. If they go to YouTube, obviously, you'll have to watch it, on YouTube or what have you, or one of the, who knows whether they're going to try and sell it to any of the streaming services.
I'm excited, right? I'm not a critter, to be honest with you guys. I'm not. Ted's a critter. I'm not a critter. We'll draw the lines right there. I love what Critical Role does. I love the cast of Critical Role and the way they spread the hobby. We still get asked, why don't you do Critical Role reviews anymore? And I'm the reason we don't do them anymore. Because it was 4 to 5 hours, and I would put it on my TV, and honestly, I would fall asleep watching it. I describe Critical Role as being an amazing amount of entertainment, 2 hours of entertainment stretched over 4 or 5. Now, I say that because I say that, and I also defend what they do as real D&D, because I don't believe real D&D is really exciting to watch over 4 or 5 hours. That's me personally. Love what they do. Great things for the hobby. Matt Mercer is an awesome dungeon master. The characters and players are amazing that they put forth, But for me, I don't enjoy spending 4 or 5 hours watching D&D. Now, I will tell you, I'm excited for this Kickstarter and this series because I will watch 22-minute episodes that are animated and voiced by these people.
So that is the great thing about this, and that's what I was angling towards from like 10 minutes ago. Is that what we're going to have is for all the people who are intrigued by what Critical Role is and by what they have done and done for the hobby. Here is something that has the potential to get D&D out there in another form. We've seen the animated show, and we actually have a couple videos talking about that on the channel. Some of you might have seen the horrendous attempt at a D&D movie where they basically crap all over D&D and its lore and make loads of jokes. I watched it. I will probably at some point in time watch it with my son and cringe at the stupidity and ridiculousness, but just to share, that, with him. But what this is having the capacity to do is to say, look, you might not have the capacity to watch 4 or 5 hours of this, but you like how great their acting is and their voice work is, and they're very compelling characters. I love every one of their stories and the arcs that they have been through, and to have we're gonna get a sampling of where they were before the stream started. I'm excited.
Honestly, the times that I would fall asleep when I was watching it was during combat. Like the part that most people like really enjoy playing D&D for, and I enjoy playing D&D for, like that was the worst to watch.
Well,
because it's when everything slows down and you don't have like all the interpersonal drama and
right.
role playing.
And to me, having watched, I'm up to episode 54. I think I think 55 came out and 56 should have been Thursday night. So I'm 2 episodes behind. But it's one of those things that I've watched all of this, and I understand that unless something intriguing or interesting is happening during the combat, that is when it's least compelling for me as well. That's where sometimes I will focus more heavily on my work or whatever other tasks that I'm doing, because it's not drawing me in. It's not the heavy role playing that is the drama that Critical Role has the capacity to do.
So what I'm excited for is, like you said, we don't know where it's going to go and where they're going to put it. Are they going to stream it on Twitch for the fans? Are they going? I believe the intent is to put it somewhere where the fans can watch it, whether you're part of the Kickstarter or not. Mm-hmm. Stream it and let it live on YouTube. But where I get really excited is other streaming services. Oh my God, I hope they put it on other streaming services that people have to pay to have. One, it'll be good for them, but it'll be so good for the hobby, especially depending on how they structure it. If it's clear that this is about Dungeons and Dragons and people playing the game Dungeons and Dragons, and it is a derivative of that, if we can get this on Hulu and Netflix and whatever the other streaming services are, it'll get out there into the wider population. I can only imagine it's going to be more geared towards adults than it is kids.
That Travis said exactly that. It's like, look, watch it first, and then judge and see if it's right for your child. There are some things that are PG-13 that I do allow my son to watch, and it's just like, okay, well, that's
how many F gills are they going to put into the animated series?
I do know that my son is smart enough. He knows that I'm allowed to hear certain things, but I'm just not allowed to repeat them. It's more of the suggested content and the blatant situations that are not going to be for him. And I don't know what amount of content they're going to go on that. I know that if you watch the first campaign, there are relationships that develop, and I won't spoil that. But I mean, come on now, it's been a year since the campaign 1 was over. So if you haven't watched it, I don't know if you're going to, but I don't believe at the start of the stream that there were any relationships had blossomed yet. So I don't think there's going to be any of that in there. So
I can only imagine they had relationships. I mean, the game had been going on for years before they ever started streaming it.
Well, they were level 9 when the game started, and obviously they were 20th when they finally ended it. So they did a full arc, or a full 20 level.
They're
game.
talking about this animated
But-
series being level 7.
So yeah,
So that gives them 2 levels to play with in what is, I guess they're calling the Briarwood arc.
well, the Briarwood is something that actually happened in the stream.
Okay.
Now it could have been maybe when they first encountered them. I don't. It's been a while since I watched the beginning to know where everything kind of starts and unfolds. But they've talked about doing the initial the original special that they were planning. That was going to be with them at level 7. It's going to be a new story, or at least new story to us. I don't know if they're going to use the material that Matt ran. I'm trying to get to.
So as a pure critter, like, how much do you care about how much they stick to what they did in the games?
To me, that's not important. To me, I'm excited because it's going to be characters that I do I do look upon fondly, and to be able to see, like, all right, how is this going to fit with my imagination pictorial of what the characters really look like. And you've got the amazing critter fan art that's out there that sometimes hits the nail on the head, and other times it's like, all right, well, that doesn't fit my representation of what that character looks like. But to see them in a new,
Well, when you get some art chops, man, you can go put it out there.
I don't have any art chops. I can paint minis with the skill level of barely a novice, and I'm trying to get better at that. But when it comes to drawing or painting, on canvas, nope, sorry, I don't possess that skill. Never will. But to see them in this medium in this format, it's going to be exciting. And the part of, oh man, this combat is really slow. You're not going to have any of that.
No,
issues
it's going to be nice
because you're going to have that 6 seconds of combat is going to literally be 3 to 5 seconds. So you're gonna get in there and you're gonna see. My question is,
Sam's going to be able to use those Sophie the First chops, bust them out in the animated D&D.
Is he in Sophia the First?
He's involved with a award-winning something or other.
Oh, wow.
Sophie the First. I had looked it up before.
Okay.
I brought it up for your mom because Ted's mom used to watch a lot of kids and run a daycare. So and I believe my daughter used to watch Sophie the First as well at some point.
I've seen snippets with the kids, but it's never something that I think any of my kids ever really got into.
But they've all been involved in tons and tons of animated stuff.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so it's kind of cool because, like, when you break down what they've done, like, they've raised a bunch of money to make this project happen. I'm sure they'll get a little payday out of that. But then they've also secured themselves jobs, voice acting, for quite some time to come now. And this is just the beginning, right? They said they shopped this around and they couldn't get anyone to bite on it. Well, after they go, oh, we just raised $15 million, I don't think they're going to have a problem. And because it's so well established, I think they're going to be able to keep creative control of everything as well.
I think that's a valid point.
And if anyone kind of like contradicts them or tries to roadblock them, they'll be like,
never mind, we'll go somewhere else.
We'll just run another Kickstarter and raise another $30 million and do some more.
All right, so I did some research about the biggest Kickstarters that had come out. Now, I don't know how 100% accurate this is, but this is what I had found out with my initial research. Now I got a list of the top 10 most funded Kickstarters. The Everyday Backpack, July of 2016, did 6.6 million. So they've already beat that one. The 9th most funded Kickstarter was The Seventh Continent, which was September 2017. That did 7.1 million. So they've already blown 2 of them out of the waters within the first couple of weeks. So we've still got time, or they've still got time to get further up this list. The number 8 was Ouya, the video game console, in July of 2012, did 8.6 million. the super popular Exploding Kittens board game, January 2015 did 8.8 million. The Bubo Travel Jacket, July of 2015 did 9.2 million. So not getting into the top 5, 3 of them were for a Pebble smartwatch. In
Whatever that is.
I don't do watches. When I was younger, I wore them.
Watches? Who's wearing watches? How did you do millions and millions of dollars on watches? Don't these people have smartphones? Ted should have a watch.
Yeah. April 2012, the Pebble E Pop Watch did 10.2 million. Intern Jake, or former intern Jake, knows full well and could probably cite this information. November 2016, the board game Kingdom Death Monster did 12.4 million. The biggest miniature board game that is out there. I know he spent thousands of dollars on
that's
that one.
The first one where I'm like, okay, that one's going to be harder to topple. Like the other ones, I'm like foregone conclusions. So now we're getting into the territory where they're going to have to work a little.
And that's getting into the top 5 because 10.2 million from almost 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Pebble 2 smartwatch, May of 2016 did 12.8. The Coolest Cooler, July of 2014 did 13.3 million, and the most funded Kickstarter, Pebble Time smartwatch, February 2015 did 20 million. So it is not unrealistic to say that the Critical Role is going to get into the top 5, if not the top 3 or top 1.
And just regular media is picking up their Kickstarter experience as well and putting it out there. And I don't know, but I don't think they've done any advertising. I haven't seen anything. Like they stealth dropped their Kickstarter, other than going to their audience.
10 days before they launched their Kickstarter, they talked that they were going to do it on their stream. On the
that might as well be a stealth
Thursday
drop.
game.
Like it's not like they went out and they were marketing and getting other people to talk. I didn't see anything about it until after it launched. That I looked at, and I was like, oh my god, crazy.
They released it on a Monday, so they mentioned it 2 Thursdays before. On the Thursday before, they're like, hey, it's only a few days before we do this. Be on the lookout for it. And, when it dropped, inside an hour, they were looking at $1 million. And
do you remember what their last Kickstarter did?
Well, this was their first Kickstarter. The Steamforged Games Critical Role Minis wasn't, like, it was licensed from Critical Role.
Okay.
But it was Steamforged Games who did the Kickstarter for their minis.
I don't think most people know that, so I don't think it matters.
Okay.
But I'm just curious, because that one did fairly well as well.
It did, and
and it was super short. And again, they stealth dropped it. It was like, oh, there's a Kickstarter going on, and that one was like super short too, like 2 weeks or something.
It was short. I wound up, of course, backing that one as well. There we go. And when it was called Critical Role by Steamforged Games,
Yeah.
So that was kind of amusing. So that had 20,000 backers. For whatever reason, it's listed in pounds, and it did 908,000 pounds. I don't know exactly how much that translates to in dollars,
into American.
But I know that it's definitely a pound is worth more than $1. So that is quite a lot, but it's almost triple the number of backers for this. Now I can only imagine that you've got people who are, obviously, a lot of them are going to be critters, people who are, super fans who want to see this happen. You've got fans of D&D who might not particularly like Critical Role, but understand, hey, a D&D animated thing, that's going to be cool. But then you've got the absolute crossover into just anime in and of itself, and, the similarities. And there is a huge anime market out there, and there's people are always, looking for more. There's just never enough.
War of the Lotus Blossom is super popular.
So
my son's been watching that one lately.
I've always enjoyed animated stuff. So I am 100% on board with this, and I would love to see what they wind up doing, how much they get out of it. And I fully expect this to be one of those record breaking Kickstarters that is gonna stay around for a while, maybe until they do their next one.
Well, previously when we've talked about the D&D movie,
Hmm.
and one of our friends would come on and talk about what it meant for for the hobby if that movie did well.
Hmm.
Well, we're going to see that, I think, to a greater magnitude with this animated series than we will with the movie,
Well,
because this has already done well, as in the markets.
right. Well, you have to look at it that number one, they own it, and they're going to have funding, so they're going to have the ability to be like, no, I don't like the direction you're going here. Fix it. They've got
Yeah,
the ability to make the changes. So I really feel that as much as all of these, this cast loves playing D&D, and you see that in their actions week after week, that they're going to make this be aware that this is a D&D thing. I want to see, like, okay, is somebody going to be like, there's a missed attack roll, or there's this particular power, in the Kickstarter video, when you see them show the animated blip, you see characters making certain choices that are appropriate to what they would do when they played. When Scanlan cast Lightning Bolt, for whatever reason, it comes out of his crotch, and they totally show that happening. So like, I don't know whether that was just a teaser for the trailer, or whether they're going to actually hold true to that when they actually have it a fully done thing. Only time will tell.
the really important thing too about this is the fact that so many of them are movie and TV industry people
Mm-hmm.
in different areas. So that's going to, like, they're not all just voice actors. They
Right.
do other things as well. So they know the ins and outs of the different aspects. So they know what they're talking about. And when people are talking to them, they know what's being said. Where if it was like me and you, they could tell us anything. Like, oh, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's how it works.
Right.
So that part is really awesome. And like, you kind of iterated a point without knowing it when you're going through the list, right? That Pebble Watch came up 3 times. So as long as people are happy with the product that they produce, and I imagine it's going to be top notch. That means if they do another Kickstarter, they can do the same thing. They can grow more and more,
Right.
so they can keep this going, and it's just going to keep expanding the awareness of the hobby. Depending on how they shoot the animated
Mm-hmm.
series, I can't see why Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast would be like, you can't say this or you can't do that, because of the amount of advertising that Critical Role basically brings to their product and their brand.
Right.
Um, as the only part where I could see is maybe if it's like too adult or
Right.
something.
Right.
But hopefully, like, that part will come across that, like, this is like D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would love to see some of the branding, work its way into
Mm.
into the series, into like the opening or something.
That would be fun.
I think it would. I think it will. Not just fun. I think it would really help and go a long way to grow the hobby for people to see this thing and maybe reach an audience that we were never going to reach before.
Well, Critical Role has already done that. We know that they are bringing new people into the hobby. So I can only imagine that moving into this new format is only going to continue that message. Um, to me, I'm excited that we know they are voice actors and actors, however you want to look at it. And what they do for the most part during their streams, when they're talking to NPCs and talking to each other, we know that they're improvising. They might have some idea of, like, hey, we want to have this conversation later, and they might be thinking of what they're going to say and how they might say it, just like a real person would when they're hemming and hawing around a conversation that they haven't had yet. But when they come up with a script and they they get to be like, oh, we're going to do this, like any other, thing. I'm going to read this 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 12 times, whatever it takes to get the best cut. I'm excited to see, what is that going to do for, the overall product, because like I know that there have been times when, they've been super emotional and, they're on the verge of tears or actually crying, to be able to pull out that chops and have that completely animated. I'm excited.
I get it, man. We cry at our table all the time, just tears the whole time, just screaming. Can't see anything. Everything's all wet all the time.
I'm just saying, like, when you've got the ability to literally craft your dialogue, the scene, and then you get to like, all right, I'm gonna put my best foot forward for it. Like, we're not talking about D&D at this point in time. We're talking about them creating and crafting a product, and with any product, you want to make sure that you're putting the best thing out there. So I'm excited to see, what are these actors and actresses going to wind up doing with, a full-fledged, script of their characters that, they've had sitting on the shelf for a while because they've moved on to, these new characters.
Yeah, who knows what'll open up in the future too? Like if they go in a different direction than the characters they've played with, with just like, oh, we're just going to make D&D shows now. That would be really cool, and that would give them, like, if they went in like a totally new direction. Obviously not for this Kickstarter, but if they did another one in the future, that might give them the ability to pull back and be less adult and do maybe do a PG-13 or something. I wouldn't mind seeing it only because I know it would be really good for the hobby to get younger audiences more involved. I mean, granted, so there's plenty of younger audiences that are going to watch this too, even if they shouldn't. But that's neither here nor there.
No, we don't really have control of what other people do, despite your, wanting mind powers.
So Chris Hasnick, table RPGs heavily use Kickstarter. Can you talk about the problems with using Kickstarter to develop RPG products? There's a greater overarching problem with creating RPG products, and that is there isn't enough money in the niche. The niche isn't big enough. And it's also this weird place where we have pay what you want, which if you don't want Kickstarter and crowdfunding in your hobby, well, you better get rid of pay what you want, because it drives the talent out of the industry, because if they want to make any real money, they have to go someplace else. They're gonna take those writing chops and skills and put them where it's more lucrative for them. Kickstarter really opens up an avenue for smaller companies or individuals to throw their hat in the ring and actually give them a shot at producing RPG products, because the cost to creating a quality RPG product is very high. Just the art alone is extremely high. Like, when you're paying, 50 to hundreds of dollars per piece of art that you put into something, and you want to be competitive, you're priced right out.
Yeah, we've talked to artists who are well known and well worth their work, and it's like, yeah, I get about $200 to $250 for a piece of artwork, and then you hear how many hours it took, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. That you essentially work for that little an hour and produce such great work. But the easiest thing to do is look at any particular gaming book. I'll point this way. You can't see the hand off camera, but count the number of pieces of artwork that are in it. If you're going to have a decent cover art, you should be looking at that's a minimum of $150 if you really want that art to stand out.
1,000?
Well,
Like, cover art is even more.
Well, right. Well, I'm just saying, like, if you want it to stand out, you can't put something that's $50 on the cover and have it be, bold and eye catching and whatever. So that's going to be your biggest piece. So if you're going to put something that's $100, $200, $250 as a piece of artwork inside, then yes, $1,000 is what you should be aiming for your cover. It's crazy, but count all the pieces of art, multiply that by 50, and there's your bare bones idea of what the art budget would need to start at.
Right. That doesn't even get into editing the pages, the layout.
Paying the writers,
Yes.
you
So
know.
there's a lot that goes into it. So, really, crowdfunding is kind of a godsend for people that want to get into this and produce quality products, or they're relegated to doing things like drive through RPG, and you know you have to sell a lot of books to get back what you initially put out. Like some of these people that do products on the DMs Guild and Drive Through RPG. I don't know how they make their money, how they make that back, especially if they're doing like pay what you want, or which really kind of like brings down what people are willing to pay.
Well, I mean, the ones that are going to come with artwork, they're either using stock art or, they're making deals with an artist, be like, look, I'll help you get a start. You give me a couple pieces of art that I can use, and I'll put your name in this as the artist, and they hope, that they get noticed. I'm speculating. I really don't know for sure. Or it could be, art that they're creating themselves.
Well, even stock art's expensive. Having a stock art account is also very expensive as well. So no matter how, it's a more frugal way where you can go about it, but at the end of the day, it has its own costs.
So I want to jump in real quick into the comments. I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but Shirka says, love the shirt, Ted. This is actually something from RPG Crate. I swear he's got some kind of Warlock pact with, some t-shirt designer or creator. And every month there is a t-shirt in the crate. They're always, vibrant and spectacular. And this just happens to be, the newest crate shirt. So highly recommend you check out RPG Crate if you like the shirts that I tend to wear. And you can use promo code Nerdarchy RPG Crate to get 10% off your first month crate.
Boom. Austin Taylor also had a question. You guys worried this may cause copycats from other animation studios and possibly oversaturate the market?
I don't think that's going to happen. Number one, anything that's gonna come out, yeah, you might have some knockoffs, but I mean, those people who are going to do something that's like, hey, let's make something fantasy-esque, they're not going to be able to produce what Critical Role is doing. I mean, nothing is going to emulate those characters in that world, voiced by the same ones who did the show. If they create more D&D, more fantasy animation, I'm all for it. Let's watch more. I just don't think it's possible to oversaturate, because they're not going to overshadow what the critters are already out there doing.
The cream will rise to the crop. You know what? Even someone does it better than Critical Role does, it's still better, right? It's still good for the hobby. In order to do that, they have to tell better stories and have better animation, and they have to invest in better, right? In order to happen. So which would be great. Like you'd have so what if Critical Role's animated series was the second best one and we have a better one to watch, or it's in the top 5 and we have a lot of great choices? I don't think it's a problem.
I'd watch them all.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those things. Like, I'd love to be in a position where I'm spoiled for choice of what D&D show I'm going to watch. Now, I don't have any other regular D&D show that I watch. But there are other streamers out there. There are other channels out there that have regular great content. And, if any of them decided, what, I'm going to dive in, I'm going to put my hat in this ring, and I'm going to make something too, great. Let's see what they can make. I only think, I don't think anyone else would have the capability. There are very few would have the capability to do what Critical Role did, because they already had their foot in that world. Right. That's true. I'm just saying that, if somebody were to do it, I'd be all for it. And, in the end, I if a couple crappy animation shows come out, unless it's got D&D stamped all over it, like the, D&D movie, I don't think it's gonna have any capacity to hurt D&D and what it brings to tabletop. I think if more people are interested in fantasy stuff, as we've already seen the love of Game of Thrones, you could just as easily be like, okay, hey, you like this stuff? Go check out D&D. it's only going to get people moving in that direction.
So Craig Mortley, has anyone watched Dragon Prince? Yes, both seasons. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I think it's funny elves doing ninja runs, but I'm digging it.
My son has watched all of it, and he's told me, "Daddy, you got to check it out." So it's on my to hit list. I sadly have not spent a whole lot of time with Netflix and watching new stuff. That tends to be
It's all that Critical Role you're watching, man. You could have watched like 5 episodes of a show, maybe 6.
Typically, 4 to 5 episodes of a hour-long show would span the difference between watching a Critical Role. But when I'm watching a show, I tend to watch it, whereas Critical Role is something that I tend to have on in the background while I'm doing other stuff, because to me it's mostly a auditory consumption.
Gotcha. I think a lot of people do that anyway. If you're not plugging in live, for the chat and everything,
Mm-hmm.
which that's another thing. Like that chat, I don't know how anybody communicates with anybody in there. The thing just scrolls down. It's like Neo reading the Matrix, So I don't know how they do it. But all in all, this is going to just be great for the hobby. I think it's going to be, and we're going to hit another renaissance. And I wasn't really expecting this until maybe the D&D movie, which is good for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. Ryan wants to know like what character class would I like to see in Critical Role. Honestly,
I think they're all picked already, right?
like unless somebody were to die, I really, which I'm not really looking forward to. I would have liked to have seen, more with Molly and doing stuff with the Blood Hunter, because it seems like every time he really got into, hey, can I use this class feature? Nah, it doesn't work yet.
I know, it was the best. It was my favorite part, actually. Hey, do I sense it? No.
And having that Matt's character class, really getting to dive into it, I think that would be pretty neat. But that character didn't survive, so sorry. Beyond that, I mean, there's not a whole lot of other character classes that are out there. I mean, unofficially, we have the new take on the Artificer. We have the what was it initially, the Mystic?
Yeah, the broken version of the Mystic is still out there.
So, like, if one of those classes were to wind up becoming, official, then I think that would probably be top. But I mean, I don't spend a whole lot of time looking at a whole lot of
Hey,
other.
do you know a Leanne?
A Leanne?
A Leanne Mater says you're Teddy's dad.
I am Teddy's dad. The name doesn't ring a bell, but maybe. Maybe she's one of the other people from Scouts and Teddy's new troop that I haven't managed to get all names and faces down yet.
That's funny. Critters are everywhere. You've got critters secreted away in your scouts. You didn't even know about it.
That's possible. But beyond, I said, beyond the Artificer and the Mystic, I know there's a couple other YouTube channels that have made some classes. There's plenty of stuff in the DM's Guild and Drive Through RPG. I don't think Matt is going to really take anything from there. I think unless it's official, it's either going to be his creation or he's probably not going to touch it.
Is there anything that you'd be super stoked and excited to see show up in the cartoon from the first season or the first campaign?
See, it's
if you had to pick out like one thing.
It's all going to be pregame stuff. So like I know like they're talking about Trinket not having armor yet, and at one point in time you're seeing
no, it's not all pregame. Like I think like the first episode is, and then after that they go into.
Well, I mean, any of the dragon fights I think would be a lot of fun. There was some, the initial siege with the Chroma Conclave, I think would be a badass animation to have 3 dragons terrorizing a town. I think that would be great and very very real D&D to see, just a
And now you have
breath weapon.
and now you also have the animation to go along with it, because, like Ted said, we've been doing the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, the D&D cartoon, and kind of like D&Dizing it and how you would like use it in your game. And we've recently just did episode 2, which isn't up on the channel yet. We have the intro to the characters, and the first episode 1 is up. But in episode 2, we do see a dragon, and the dragon's kind of husky and waddles like a toddler. So,
Well, I mean, that's kind of the way Tiamat has been moving as well. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you take the the CGI of what the dragons are able to do in Game of Thrones, and you apply that kind of caliber to to the animation of like, oh man, this is just nuking buildings and what have you. I mean, it could be utterly terrifying.
They're saying that would have to be in the next season. But I don't see why this couldn't be an ongoing thing, right? That they could just keep pumping them out, like whether they do Kickstarters or they get picked up by, Netflix or something. But if it continues to do well, I don't see why they can't keep pumping it out.
You honestly, they with the amount of support that they already have, I could absolutely see them saying, you know what, let's just do it all. Let's take the entire campaign, level 1 to level 20, go through it all, go through the life, go through the death, go through everything for the entire story arc. And I think that they would find that people would be willing to get into that.
So I'm looking at one of the comments from non-name, a bunch of numbers. And basically, the gist of it is that this could very well raise the bar for everything, Dungeons and Dragons to come afterwards, which is what I'm hoping for. That's when we go back to, are you worried about other studios, saturating? I'm like, no, because if Critical Role does something amazing and that sets the bar, if they saturate with crap, no one's going to see it, no one's going to notice it.
No one's going to care.
Yeah, it's as if it didn't exist. But if they saturate it with amazing stuff, well, I don't think it'll actually get saturated. We'll have lots of cool choices.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, okay, well, the D&D movie or the D&D movie trilogy, it didn't do well, and and justly so. They chose a poor script, and they moved away from a lot of typical D&D lore. The dwarf character that was in it was entirely just a joke. It was like, what are you trying to accomplish with this movie?
The only cool thing was the quicksand rug. I know some people don't like it, but I like that for some reason.
There were definitely interesting elements and D&D elements into it, but the let's start off with the low level rogue who's going to sneak his way into a wizard's tower and steal an item. Come on, we all know that it's a bad idea. Why go down that road? Let's get some competent DMs to plan your story arc and get a decent writer to make a script. Sorry.
Yeah, or just take one of those like award-winning series that you've already put out and just turn that into a movie. Yeah. That's why Marvel is so much better than DC. They're like, hey, this stuff here worked. Let's just make it on the big screen. And DC's like, let's put an artistic spin on it and it'll be great. And they all suck.
Well, I've heard Shazam has gotten even better reviews than Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman was considered the best so far.
Shazam looks funny. I actually do want to see that one.
You
know what I'm thinking though, but for Critical Role and D&D in general, is it would be amazing if these guys nail it out of the park, and then Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, tap them to do stuff for Dungeons and Dragons and just hire their company.
That would be great.
You've already got people that are fans of the game. They know the industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be Critical Role. It could be, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, but modernized and done in a different way.
Right.
But I would be super stoked for that and excited for that.
Yeah, I could totally get on board. So do you think
that's a Critical Role question that might be a spoiler?
No, yeah. So I won't read that. And
We're
Is
in the
that-
final 10 minutes too.
Okay.
Are,
So
are you looking for a comment?
I was looking to see if Leanne had replied to see if where she's calling me out from. Maybe. So is there anything that we wanted to specifically talk about today that's not Critical Role related?
Yeah, I guess the last 10 minutes we can just we'll go over some Nerdarchy stuff, and we'll watch the 100 and some people just roll right down to like 30. But no, so I did want to address the fact that we haven't streamed in a couple weeks because we were setting up to stream the last time and actually do this stream in particular, and while we're doing that, I got the blue screen of death on my computer, which is the one we stream from. So it took us I got it back that Saturday, the following Saturday after I would have we would have streamed.
But it's like, do you have a startup disk? I'm like, I haven't had a startup disk in years, man.
Yeah, I don't think anybody sends those anymore.
So we're like, all right, let's test Ted's computer, and mine failed, and it's like we'd have a crappy stream if we tried to run from mine. So we're like, all right, what do we do? And we're like, oh, we'll just have to get it fixed and try to do this next week. And we offer our apologies for that. When we looked at when we were getting it back, it's like, yeah, we got an appointment to pick it up at 4:20 on Saturday. It's like, well, that's after the stream,
Yeah.
so it looks like we're going to do 2 weeks in a row of no streaming.
Yeah, and that's like the main Nerdarchy computer, so they had to try and retrieve all the data as well as reinstall the operating system. So so we did, but unfortunately we did recover nearly all the data. Everything but one really important piece. And I was like, are you kidding me? Of all the things to lose, this was the one thing I wanted you to not lose.
What did you lose?
I'm not going to say, but
okay.
The drow sap.
Okay.
But that being said, we've got the computer up and running. Doug is pointing out we might want to talk about April 1st Patreon rewards that you and Nerder Doug have been working on.
All right, so
nonstop.
So we've been doing some fun stuff with our Patreon these last handful of months, and for years we've joked around about beardomancy, and that as Nerdarchy's patron race of D&D is the dwarf, that we feel that there definitely needs to be the magic of beardomancy. So if you get into our Patreon, on or before April 1st, you are going to get access to the Beardomancer tradition for Wizard. You're going to get access to new spells. You're going to get access to magic items, and whatever else that we decide to come up with. We've got some fancy art that I think has been, shared around a little bit.
Teased, a little bit of teasing going on.
So if you want to be able to play a Beardomancer in your games, right now, the only way to get it is to go over to Patreon, /Nerdarchy, and join at the level that you're going to get the product, and voila.
And I'm not sure how far back we went, but if you go back through the Patreon rewards, there's several months that are in there that you can actually download as well. So we from whatever point we started putting them up as posts, then they're still up there, so you guys can download them and get several months worth as well.
So you're giving insider information there.
I did. You're only going to hear it here. I'm going to put this video on unlisted after we're done anyway. No one else will ever find out. No, so there's that. So you guys did feats, spells. There's a wizard tradition. Is there a monster as well? Maybe.
I think we talked about a monster. I don't know if I got it in there yet. I got to talk to Doug and make sure we've got our I's dotted and our T's crossed.
Well, if that's the case, we're going to have to get on it and make sure we get some art for that monster, for sure.
Make it happen.
Yeah. Also worth mentioning, after this stream, we are going to be doing a Nerdarchy Patreon only live chat. So about 3:15ish is it's scheduled for. So that will be anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour to an hour. Depends on how long you guys want to keep talking with us about, Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop role-playing games. all things Nerdarchy. Ask us personal questions. We may or may not answer them.
I imagine with not having done this the last couple of weeks, we got a handful of questions already lined up.
Yes, we do. I have to pull them in between streams for sure.
Fun.
So with that, we're gonna get ready for that. And until next time,
Stay nerdy.